Katerina Volkov doesn't make mistakes. She built her empire on certainty, on reading every room before she enters it, on knowing the outcome of a conversation before the first word is spoken. 20 years in this world has taught her that hesitation is death, that softness is a liability, that the only way to survive as a woman in a kingdom of wolves is to become something more terrifying than any of them could ever be. So when her emergency line rings during a negotiation with the Chechen delegation, a negotiation that's already on a knife's edge, already one wrong word away from bloodshed, she answers it with ice in her voice, expecting one of her lieutenants with news that couldn't wait. Instead, she hears confusion, uncertainty, and then, impossibly, a voice speaking Russian. Not the harsh, clipped Russian of her soldiers, not the oil-slick, smooth Russian of her rivals, but something else entirely. Something that sounds like her grandmother's bedtime stories, like the poetry collections she used to hide under her mattress when she was still a girl who believed in beautiful things. "I'm so sorry," the voice says, and there's genuine distress in it, genuine concern. "I think there's been some kind of technical error. Are you all right? Do you need help?" Katerina's hand tightens on the phone. Across the table, Dmitri, her second, the man who's been with her since the beginning, raises an eyebrow. The Chechens are watching her with predatory interest, waiting to see if this interruption is weakness they can exploit. She should hang up. She should have Yuri trace the call and eliminate whoever's on the other end, because this is a security breach, because someone just accessed a line that fewer than 5 people in the world are supposed to know exists. But something about that voice, the warmth in it, the complete absence of fear, roots her in place. "Who is this?" she asks in Russian, and her voice comes out softer than she intended. The man on the other end stammers. "I'm Daniel. I work at a call center downtown, and I think your call got rerouted to us by mistake. I'm really sorry for the confusion. If you give me your account number, I can try to—" "A call center," Katerina repeats, and something that might be amusement flickers through her chest. When was the last time she felt amused? When was the last time anything surprised her? "Yes, ma'am. Again, I apologize for the inconvenience. Is there anything I can help you with?" He sounds so earnest, so genuinely concerned about her inconvenience, about making sure she's taken care of, and Katerina realizes with a jolt that he has no idea who he's talking to. No idea that the woman on the other end of this line has ordered deaths with less emotion than most people order coffee. No idea that her name is whispered in certain circles like a curse. He's just being kind because that's what he does. Because somewhere in this rotting city, there are still people who operate on the assumption that other human beings deserve basic decency. She should hang up now. She should definitely hang up now. "No," she says instead. "You've been very helpful. Thank you." She ends the call before he can respond, sets the phone face down on the table, and turns her attention back to the Chechens. The negotiation continues. Dmitri doesn't ask about the interruption because Dmitri knows better than to question her in front of outsiders. But she can feel his curiosity burning across the table, can feel the question hovering in the space between them. Later, when the Chechens have agreed to her terms, because they always agree to her terms eventually, when her empire has expanded another 3 blocks into territory that used to belong to someone who made the mistake of thinking she could be intimidated, Dmitri pulls her aside. "Everything all right?" he asks carefully. "Have Yuri trace that call," Katerina orders. "I want to know who he is, where he lives, everything." She tells herself it's security protocol. She tells herself she's being thorough because a breach like this can't go uninvestigated. She tells herself a lot of things that night as she lies awake in her penthouse, staring at the ceiling, replaying that voice in her head. The gentleness of it, the concern. When was the last time someone asked if she was all right and actually meant it? By morning, Yuri has a full report. Daniel Chen, 28 years old, works the night shift at a call center in downtown Brooklyn because it pays slightly better than day shifts, and he's trying to save money for graduate school. No criminal record, no connection to any of the families, no connection to anything remotely dangerous. He lives alone in a fifth-floor walk-up in a neighborhood that Katerina technically controls, but doesn't think about because it's too small, too insignificant to worry about. He's nobody. He's nothing. He's so far removed from her world that their paths crossing was a statistical impossibility. She should forget about him. Instead, she finds herself reading the report 3 times, looking at the photo Yuri pulled from the DMV database. Daniel has a kind face, tired eyes, the sort of face that makes you think he listens when people talk, that he actually cares about the answers. Katerina sets the report down and stares out the window at the city that she owns piece by piece, block by block, soul by corrupted soul. This is stupid. This is dangerous. This is the kind of distraction that gets people killed in her line of work. Prepare the car, she tells Dmitri 8 hours later. I need to make a stop. If Dmitri thinks this is unusual, he doesn't say. He's survived this long in her organization because he knows when to be silent. The drive to Daniel's apartment building takes 40 minutes in traffic. Katerina spends the entire time trying to talk herself out of this, trying to convince herself that this impulse, this completely irrational, utterly inexplicable impulse, is something she can ignore. But then they're pulling up outside his building, and she's stepping out onto the cracked sidewalk with 2 of her men flanking her, and she's climbing 5 flights of stairs that smell like old cooking oil and mildew. And then she's standing outside apartment 5C, and Dmitri is knocking, and she can hear movement inside. Footsteps, the sound of a chain being undone, and then the door is opening. Daniel looks different in person, more real. His hair is messy like he just woke up, and he's wearing a faded t-shirt and sweatpants. And when he sees her standing there with 2 large men in expensive suits, confusion crosses his face first, then recognition, though he can't possibly know who she is, then fear. Good. Something vicious in Katerina's chest whispers. Fear keeps people alive. But then she speaks, and her voice comes out wrong again, too soft, too close to something that might be gentle. You answered my call, she says in Russian, and watches his face go through another complicated series of emotions, confusion, understanding, and underneath it all, that fear sharpening into something closer to panic. I don't understand, he says, also in Russian, and his hands are shaking slightly as he grips the doorframe. Who are you? What is this about? Katerina could answer, could tell him exactly who she is and watch that fear crystallize into terror, could enjoy the power of it, the way she always does when people finally understand what they're dealing with. But looking at him, at this man who was kind to her without knowing her, who asked if she needed help without wanting anything in return, she finds she doesn't want to see terror in his eyes. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You're coming with me, she says instead. What? No, I don't even know you. It's not a request. She watches him process this, watches him look from her face to Dmitri's impassive expression to the second man standing slightly behind her. She watches him calculate his chances of closing the door, of calling for help, of making any choice other than the one she's already made for him. And she sees the moment he realizes that he has no choices left. That whatever this is, whoever she is, his normal life just ended. I don't understand, he says again, quieter this time. You will, Katerina tells him, and that's not a lie. He will understand eventually. He'll understand exactly what she is and what she does, and why people cross the street when they see her coming. He'll understand that the woman who spoke to him with kindness on the phone is the same woman who's currently upending his entire existence without explanation or apology. Get dressed. You have 2 minutes. She doesn't wait for his agreement because she doesn't need it. Dmitri steps aside as she walks into the apartment, small, clean, filled with books and the kind of furniture that comes from thrift stores and hope Evidence of a life lived carefully, lived honestly. Everything her life isn't. Daniel hasn't moved from the doorway. What happens if I say no? Katerina turns to look at him, really look at him, and something complicated twists in her chest. He's terrified. She can see it in the tension of his shoulders, in the way his breathing has gone shallow, but he's still asking the question, still trying to assert some kind of control over a situation that's already completely out of his hands. There's courage in that. Stupid, pointless courage, but courage nonetheless. Then I make the choice for you, she says simply. 2 minutes, Daniel. Using his name, that's a mistake. She knows it the moment she says it, knows it by the way his eyes widen slightly, by the way that fear shifts into something more complex. He knows she's done research, knows this isn't random, knows he's already been marked by whatever this is. He disappears into what must be his bedroom. Katerina can hear drawers opening, the sound of a zipper. Dmitri is looking at her with barely concealed curiosity, but he stays silent. The second man, Victor, who's new enough that he doesn't know all her patterns yet, looks vaguely confused by this entire situation. When Daniel emerges, he's wearing jeans and a sweater and carrying nothing but his wallet and phone. Smart enough not to pack a bag, smart enough to know that would be pointless. Or maybe he's still hoping this is temporary, that whatever this is will be resolved quickly and he'll be back in this apartment by morning. Katerina almost feels sorry for him. Almost. The drive back to her building is silent. Daniel sits between Victor and the window, staring straight ahead, and Katerina watches him from her seat across the car, studies the way his jaw is clenched, the way his hands are fisted on his thighs. He's not crying, not begging, just trying to hold himself together, trying to maintain some dignity in a situation that stripped him of all control. That's interesting. Most people break faster than this. When they arrive at her building, the penthouse suite that takes up the entire top floor, the place where she conducts business and sleeps and exists, in the few hours she's not managing her empire. Dmitri takes Daniel to one of the guest rooms. It's luxurious by any standard. King-sized bed, attached bathroom, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the city, but there are no locks on the inside of the door, and there are men stationed in the hallway, and the windows don't open more than 3 inches. A gilded cage is still a cage. Katerina doesn't follow them. Instead, she goes to her office, pours herself 2 fingers of vodka, and tries to understand what she's just done. She's kidnapped a civilian, an innocent man with no connection to her world, no useful information, no leverage value. She's brought him into her home for reasons she can't adequately explain even to herself. This is insane. This is the kind of behavior that signals weakness, that invites challenge, that gets people killed. And yet she can't regret it. Can't make herself walk down that hallway and tell Dmitri to take Daniel home, to erase this mistake before it compounds. Because the truth she doesn't want to examine too closely, is that having him here, knowing he's in her space, makes something in her chest feel less constricted, makes her feel, for the first time in years, like she's done something that wasn't calculated, like she's made a choice based on want rather than strategy. It's terrifying. It's intoxicating. It's going to destroy her if she's not careful. Dmitri appears in her doorway 20 minutes later. He's settled. Not happy, but settled. You want to tell me what this is about? No, Katerina says. Cat dash. It's a security matter. She cuts him off, using the tone that means this conversation is over. Make sure he's comfortable. Make sure he doesn't leave. Dmitri studies her for a long moment, and she knows what he's seeing. She's known him for 15 years, fought beside him, bled with him. He can read her better than anyone, which makes him valuable and dangerous in equal measure. This isn't like you, he says finally. I know. If this is about the phone call... It is and it isn't, Katerina interrupts. Just trust me, Dmitri. Can you do that? He sighs, but he nods. Always have. After he leaves, Katerina sits in the darkness of her office and finishes her vodka and tries not to think about the fact that there's a frightened man in her guest room who has no idea that his life just changed permanently. Tries not to think about the way his voice sounded on the phone, warm and concerned. Tries not to think about how long it's been since anyone treated her like a person instead of a threat. She fails at all of it. 3 days pass. Daniel stays in his room mostly, coming out only when Dmitri brings him meals. Katerina watches on the security feeds, another violation, another line crossed, and catalogs everything she learns. He paces when he's anxious. He reads the books that were already on the shelf in that room, old political thrillers left by the previous occupant. He doesn't cry, doesn't rage, just exists in this strange limbo with a kind of quiet dignity that makes her chest ache. On the 4th day, she goes to him. She knocks, which is a courtesy she doesn't usually extend, and waits for his muffled "come in" before opening the door. Daniel is sitting on the bed, book in hand, and when he sees her, something complicated crosses his face. Not quite fear anymore, something more exhausted. "Are you going to tell me what this is about?" he asks in Russian. Katerina closes the door behind her and leans against it. "You're a security risk." "I'm a call center operator who got a wrong number. How is that a security risk?" "That wasn't a wrong number. That was a line that's supposed to be untraceable. The fact that you answered it means there's a flaw somewhere in my system." "So kill me," Daniel says, and his voice is so tired that it takes her a moment to process the words. "Or let me go, but don't keep me in this limbo where I don't know what happens next, where I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. If you're going to do something, just do it." He's not being brave now. He's being honest. Katerina recognizes the difference because she's seen enough fear in her life to know all its flavors. This is resignation. This is someone who spent 4 days alone with their thoughts and come to the conclusion that they have no power here, that fighting is pointless. She should let him keep thinking that, should maintain that distance, that imbalance of power that keeps everything simple. Instead, she finds herself walking further into the room, sitting in the chair near the window, looking at him like he's not a problem to be solved, but a person to be understood. "I'm not going to kill you," she says. "Then what are you going to do with me?" Katerina doesn't have an answer to that. Not one that makes sense. Not one she's willing to say out loud. So instead, she asks, "Why did you speak Russian that night?" Daniel blinks, clearly not expecting the question. "What?" "On the phone, when you answered, you spoke Russian." "You were speaking Russian," he points out. "I assumed you'd be more comfortable in your first language." "You assumed," Katerina repeats slowly. "You didn't think I was testing you. You didn't think it was a trick." "Why would I think that? You sounded stressed. I wanted to help." There it is again. That incomprehensible kindness. That assumption that people calling a helpline genuinely need help and deserve to receive it without suspicion or calculation. Daniel lives in a world where kindness is reflexive, where helping others is just what you do. Katerina lives in a world where kindness is weakness and help always comes with strings attached. These worlds should never have intersected. The fact that they did, the fact that she's sitting here now, talking to him instead of dealing with the dozen urgent matters that are undoubtedly piling up on her desk, is proof that something in her is fundamentally broken. Or maybe it's proof that something in her is still working, still capable of wanting something beyond power and control and survival. "You have family?" she asks. Daniel's expression shudders immediately. "Why?" "Answer the question." "A sister in California. She doesn't know anything about this. Please don't." "I won't," Katerina cuts him off. "As long as you cooperate, your sister is safe." It's not entirely a lie. She has no interest in Daniel's sister, but the implied threat, that's strategic. That's maintaining control. That's remembering who she is and what she does. Except then Daniel says, "You promise?" with such desperate hope in his voice that something in Katerina's chest cracks open. Yes, she hears herself say. I promise. And she means it, genuinely means it, which is possibly the most dangerous moment of this entire insane situation. She leaves before she can say anything else. Before she can make any more promises, she'll be compelled to keep. Dmitri is waiting in the hallway, trying to look like he wasn't listening at the door. He's not to be harmed, Katerina says. Pass the word to everyone. Anyone who touches him answers to me personally. Dmitri's eyebrows rise. That's going to raise questions. Let them question, Katerina says, and walks away before she has to see the concern in her oldest friend's eyes. That night, she can't sleep. This isn't unusual. Katerina sleeps poorly under the best circumstances, and these are far from the best circumstances. But tonight, the insomnia has a specific focus. She keeps thinking about Daniel in that room, about the fear he's successfully hiding, about the way he asked her to promise his sister would be safe. At 3 a.m, she gives up on sleep entirely and goes to her office to work. There are always problems to solve, always territories to manage, always rivals to keep in check. But she finds her attention drifting, finds herself pulling up information about Daniel's sister. Emma Chen, 32, high school teacher in San Diego, married, no kids, lives in a modest house in a decent neighborhood, easy to protect, easy to ensure nothing bad happens to her. Katerina makes a phone call, gives instructions to one of her people on the West Coast. By the time the sun rises, Emma Chen has protection she doesn't know about. People watching her house, people making sure she gets to and from work safely, people who will intervene if anyone, from Katerina's world or outside it, tries to use her as leverage. It's overkill. It's revealing. It's exactly the kind of behavior that will make her organization think she's going soft. She does it anyway. 2 weeks pass. Daniel is still in the guest room, still trapped in this strange existence. But things have shifted slightly. Katerina visits him most evenings now, and they talk, not about anything important, not about her business or his situation, just small talk, books they've read, places they've been, the kind of conversations that normal people have in normal circumstances, except nothing about this is normal. Daniel is less afraid now, or at least better at hiding it. He asks questions sometimes, careful questions, questions that don't directly challenge her, but still seek information. Where is he? How long will this last? What does she want from him? Katerina doesn't answer most of them, but she keeps coming back, keeps sitting in that chair by the window while he sits on the bed, keeps pretending this is something other than a powerful woman becoming dangerously obsessed with a captive man. Because that's what this is, isn't it? Obsession. She thinks about him during negotiations, wonders what he'd think of her decisions, finds herself looking forward to their evening conversations in a way that has nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with wanting to hear his voice. It's the voice that started this. That soft, concerned voice speaking Russian like it was poetry. She should have hung up, should have eliminated the security risk, should have done 1,000 things differently. But she didn't. And now he's here, and she can't imagine sending him away, and that's the most terrifying thing of all. One evening, Daniel asks her why she speaks Russian. It's my first language, Katerina answers, which is both true and incomplete. But you grew up here, he presses, in America. My parents came over when I was young, she says carefully. They wanted a better life. Did they get it? Katerina almost laughs, almost tells him about her father who gambled away everything they had, about her mother who died when Katerina was 16, about how she survived after that, about the choices she made and the things she did to ensure she'd never be that powerless again. Almost tells him all of it, this complete stranger who has somehow become the person she talks to more than anyone else in her life. But that would be too much truth, too much vulnerability. So instead, she says, that's a complicated question. Most important questions are, Daniel responds quietly, and the understanding in his voice nearly undoes her. That night, after she leaves his room, Katerina stands in the hallway for a long moment. Dmitri finds her there, looking concerned in the way he only does when they're alone. "This can't continue," he says gently. "I know. People are asking questions, wondering why you're keeping him. There are rumors." "What kind of rumors?" Dmitri hesitates, which is answer enough. Rumors that she's weak, that she's been compromised, that her judgment is failing, the kind of rumors that invite challenges, that make rivals think they can take what's hers. "Handle it," Katerina orders. "Kat, I can handle the rumors, but I can't handle the reality. You're different around him, softer, and that's going to get you killed if you're not careful." "I said handle it," she repeats, ice creeping back into her voice. The voice that reminds Dmitri exactly who he's talking to. He leaves without another word. Katerina knows he's right, knows the situation is unsustainable, but she can't seem to make herself care about that as much as she should. Can't make herself prioritize empire over this strange connection that's formed between her and a man who should mean nothing to her. The crisis comes 3 weeks after she took Daniel. It's Dmitri who brings her the news. "Sergei's crew knows about him, about the civilian you're keeping." Katerina's blood goes cold. Sergei Volkov, distant cousin, ambitious rival, the man who's been waiting for any sign of weakness to make his move. If he knows about Daniel, if he's seen an opportunity. "How many does he have on this?" she asks. "At least 10. They're planning something. I don't know what yet." Katerina stands. "Double the security on this floor. No one gets up here without my direct authorization." "Already done. But Kat, if Sergei is moving against you, maybe it's time to—" "No. You haven't even heard what I was going to say. You were going to suggest I get rid of Daniel, that I eliminate the vulnerability, and the answer is no." Dmitri looks at her with something that might be pity. Then you need to be prepared for what comes next. What comes next arrives 2 days later. Katerina is in a meeting when the shooting starts. 3 floors down, Sergei's people trying to fight their way up. They're not going to succeed. Her security is too good, her people too loyal. But the fact that they tried is a declaration of war. She should be down there, should be coordinating the defense, making sure every threat is eliminated. Instead, she's running to Daniel's room because suddenly the only thing that matters is making sure he's safe. He's standing by the window when she bursts in, looking terrified by the sound of gunfire. "What's happening?" "Get away from the window," Katerina orders, and her voice is harder now, sharper. This is who she really is. Not the woman who sits and talks with him in the evenings. Not the woman who's somehow become addicted to his presence. This is the Volkov queen, and right now that queen needs him to survive. Daniel doesn't argue. He moves to the interior wall, and Katerina positions herself between him and the door. She has a gun in her hand. When did she draw it? And her mind is running through scenarios. If anyone gets past her security, if anyone makes it to this floor, how many she can kill before they get to him. "You're going to protect me," Daniel says, and it's not a question. "Yes." "Why?" Katerina doesn't answer, can't answer, because the truth is too complicated, too revealing, because she doesn't fully understand it herself. The gunfire stops. Footsteps in the hallway. Dmitri's voice calling her name. "We're clear. They're all dead." Katerina doesn't lower her weapon until Dmitri appears in the doorway. He takes in the scene, her positioning, her weapon, the way she's literally standing between Daniel and any possible threat. An understanding dawns in his eyes. "I'll post extra guards," is all he says. After he leaves, Katerina finally turns to look at Daniel. He's pale but composed, still not crying, still holding himself together despite having just heard people die 3 floors below him. "That was about me," he says. "Wasn't it? Someone tried to use me against you." "Yes." "And you stopped them." "Yes." Daniel is quiet for a long moment, then, "You could have just let me go. Before this happened, you could have released me and I would have disappeared, and you wouldn't have this vulnerability anymore. Katerina knows this, has known it for weeks, has chosen every single day not to do the smart thing, not to eliminate the risk. I could have, she agrees. But you didn't. No. Why? And this time, standing here in the aftermath of violence, with the smell of gunpowder still faint in the air and adrenaline making her hands shake slightly, Katerina tells him the truth, or at least part of it. Because you spoke to me like I was human, she says quietly, and no one's done that in a very long time. Daniel stares at her. She watches him process this, watches him understand exactly what she's confessing, that she's kept him here not because he's useful or valuable or strategic, but because he made her feel something. Because in a life built on violence and control and calculating every interaction, he offered her genuine kindness without knowing who she was. And she's been addicted to that feeling ever since. I'm not a good person, Daniel, she continues. The things I do, the empire I've built, it's all blood and darkness and choices that would horrify you if you knew the details. Those men who tried to hurt you today, they're dead now. I ordered it, and my people carried it out, and I don't feel even a little bit sorry about it. But you feel sorry about me, Daniel says. No, I feel... Katerina stops, tries to find words for something she's never had to articulate before. I feel like you're the only real thing in my life. Everything else is performance, strategy. But when I talk to you, I don't have to calculate, I can just be. It's too much honesty, too much vulnerability. She's given him ammunition that he could use against her if he were that kind of person. But she knows he's not, has known it from the first moment she heard his voice. Daniel takes a step toward her. Just one step, but it feels monumental in this small room. I should hate you, he says. You took me from my life. You've kept me prisoner for weeks. You've made choices for me that I had no say in. I know. But I don't. Hate you, I mean. I'm angry and I'm scared and I don't understand any of this. But I don't hate you. Katerina doesn't know what to do with that. Doesn't know how to respond to someone who refuses to see her as only a monster, even after witnessing what she's capable of. I need to go, she says instead. Deal with the aftermath, but you're safe. I promise you're safe. She leaves before he can respond, before she can say anything else that she'll regret, before she does something truly stupid like admit that somewhere in the last 3 weeks, he's stopped being a captivity and started being a choice. That if he tried to leave now, she doesn't think she could let him go. That's the realization that terrifies her more than any rival, any threat, any challenge to her empire. The knowledge that Daniel has become essential in a way that has nothing to do with power and everything to do with something far more dangerous. Need. The cleanup takes all night. Sergei's people are eliminated. His assets are absorbed into her organization. The message is sent clearly to anyone else who might be considering a challenge. Katerina Volkov is not weak. Katerina Volkov is not vulnerable. Touch what's hers and die. But as dawn breaks over the city, as Katerina stands in her office with blood on her sleeve and exhaustion making her bones ache, she knows the truth. She is vulnerable. She has been since the moment she heard Daniel's voice and decided not to hang up. And she doesn't know how to fix that without destroying the one thing that makes her feel human. Dmitri finds her there. He's been cleaning up messes with her for 15 years. He knows when to talk and when to be silent. Right now, he chooses to talk. You're in love with him. Katerina doesn't deny it. What would be the point? Dmitri sees everything. I don't know what I am. Yes, you do. And you know this can't end well. Either you let him go and spend the rest of your life regretting it, or you keep him and watch him slowly hate you for it. There's no version of this where you both get what you want. I know. So what are you going to do? Katerina doesn't answer. She doesn't have an answer. All she has is the bone-deep certainty that she can't let Daniel go, and the equally certain knowledge that keeping him is slowly destroying them both. For the first time in her adult life, Katerina Volkov doesn't know what to do. The solution when it comes is not one she expects. It's Daniel who changes everything. A week after the attack, after security has been tripled and Sergei's organization has been scattered to the winds, Daniel asks to see her. Not in his room, but in her office. It's a small request, an insignificant one. But the fact that he's making requests at all signals a shift. She agrees. When he walks into her office, she's struck by how different he looks from that first night. He's not wearing his own clothes anymore, hasn't been for weeks. Everything he has was provided by her people. But more than that, he moves differently. Less fear, more purpose, like he's made some kind of decision. "I want to understand," he says without preamble, "your world, what you do, all of it." Katerina leans back in her chair. Why? "Because I can't keep living in ignorance. Can't keep pretending that I'm just going to wake up one day and this will all be over. You've made it clear I'm not leaving, so I need to understand what I'm part of now." "You're not part of it," Katerina says. "You're separate, protected." That's a lie, and we both know it. The moment Sergei's people targeted me, I became part of it. And if I'm going to survive in your world, I need to know the rules. He's right. Katerina knows he's right. But the thought of him seeing the full darkness of what she does, the violence, the moral compromises, the casual brutality that's required to maintain power, makes her chest tight. "You won't like what you see," she warns. "Probably not, but I'll see it anyway." So she shows him. Not everything. She's not that reckless, but enough. She takes him through the financial records, shows him how her legitimate businesses are fronts for everything else, explains the territorial system, the alliances and rivalries that govern this underworld, tells him about the choices she makes every day, who to trust, who to eliminate, how to maintain power without being consumed by paranoia. Daniel listens, asks questions, and to Katerina's surprise, he doesn't judge, not the way she expected. Instead, he tries to understand, tries to see the logic in her decisions even when those decisions involve things that clearly make him uncomfortable. "It's not that different from politics," he says at one point, "just more honest about the violence." Katerina almost smiles. That's one way to look at it. Over the following weeks, something shifts between them. Daniel is still technically a captive, but it feels less like captivity and more like something else. He starts spending time in other parts of the penthouse, sitting in her office while she works, offering opinions on problems that have nothing to do with him, becoming somehow a part of her daily life in a way that feels natural rather than forced. And Katerina finds herself depending on those moments, finds herself seeking out his perspective on decisions, not because he knows her world, but because he doesn't. Because he looks at problems from an angle she'd never consider, because he reminds her that there are ways to exist beyond fear and violence. She's falling in love with him, has probably been falling in love with him since that first phone call, but now it's undeniable. Now it's a constant presence in her chest, this aching want that has nothing to do with possession and everything to do with connection. It's terrifying. It's wonderful. It's going to destroy her. The night it all comes to a head, Katerina is working late. Daniel is in her office reading on the couch she keeps for the rare moments she pretends to relax. It's become a comfortable routine. Her at her desk, him nearby, existing in companionable silence. Then her phone rings. It's Yuri. "We have a problem," he says. "Someone's asking questions about the Chen family in California." Katerina goes cold. "What kind of questions?" "Looking for weaknesses, vulnerabilities. It's subtle, but it's there." She doesn't need Yuri to spell it out. Someone is going after Emma. Someone has figured out that the way to hurt Katerina is through Daniel, and the way to hurt Daniel is through his sister. "Send our people," she orders. "Now! I want her in protective custody by the end of the hour." Already done. But boss, if someone's targeting her, they're targeting him, and they know where he is. Katerina ends the call, looks at Daniel, who's watching her with concern. "What is it?" he asks. "Your sister. Someone's going after her to get to you." All the color drains from Daniel's face. "Emma. But she doesn't know anything. She's not involved in any of this." "I know. She's safe. I have people protecting her. But Daniel..." Katerina stops, forces herself to say what needs to be said. "This is what your life is now. As long as you're connected to me, everyone you love is a target." She expects fear, anger, accusations. Instead, Daniel stands and crosses the room to her desk. "Then protect them, the way you've been protecting me." "That's not a solution. That's a temporary fix. Eventually, someone will find a way through. Someone always does." "So what are you saying? That I should leave? Go back to my old life and pretend none of this happened?" "I'm saying I can't keep you safe forever," Katerina says, and her voice cracks on the words. "I can't keep everyone you love safe forever, and I can't live with knowing that your life is in danger because of me." Daniel is quiet for a long moment. Then he does something she doesn't expect. He reaches across the desk and takes her hand. His touch is warm, gentle, everything she's not. "What if I don't want to be safe?" he says quietly. "What if I'd rather be here, in danger with you, than safe and alone somewhere else?" Katerina stares at him. "You don't know what you're saying." "I do. I've had weeks to think about this. Weeks to understand what you are and what your world is like. And I'm still choosing to stay." "Why?" "Because you make me feel alive in a way I never did before. Because every conversation we have feels more real than anything in my old life. Because I've seen what you're capable of, and I've also seen the way you look when you think no one's watching, and He stops, takes a breath. "I care about you. More than I should. More than makes sense." Katerina wants to believe him, wants to accept what he's offering. But she's lived too long in this world to trust easy answers. "You could resent me eventually," she says. "Hate me for what I've taken from you. Maybe. Or maybe I'll be grateful for what you've given me. We don't know. But I'd rather take that risk than spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been." He's still holding her hand. Katerina looks down at their joined fingers, her hands that have ordered deaths, pulled triggers, built an empire on violence, and his hands that have only ever tried to help people. They shouldn't fit together. Nothing about this should work. But somehow it does. "I can't promise you safety," she says. "I don't want promises. I want the truth. And the truth is, I feel more alive in your dangerous world than I ever did in my safe one." Katerina makes her decision. The same decision she's been making every day since she stood outside his apartment and told him he was coming with her. The irrational, strategically unsound, completely inexplicable decision to keep him. Not as a captive, as a choice. "Then stay," she says. "But know that I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. I will burn down anyone who threatens you. I will protect your sister, your friends, everyone you've ever cared about. And I will be possessive and controlling and completely unreasonable about your safety." Daniel actually smiles at that. It's small and slightly uncertain, but it's real. I'd expect nothing less. Over the next weeks, things change. Emma is moved to a secure location with round-the-clock protection. Daniel's former life is carefully erased, his trail made cold so that anyone looking for him will hit dead ends. It's not perfect. Nothing in Katerina's world ever is. But it's as safe as she can make it. And Daniel, impossibly, seems content with this new reality. He learns the rhythms of her life. Learns when to be silent and when to ask questions, learns to read the signs of her stress and exhaustion, starts leaving tea on her desk when she works late, starts existing in her space like he belongs there, which somehow he does. Katerina catches herself seeking him out between meetings, finds herself explaining decisions to him not because she needs to justify herself, but because she wants him to understand, wants him to see the logic in what she does, even when that logic is harsh and brutal. And Daniel listens, pushes back sometimes, offering perspectives she'd never considered, makes her think about the consequences of her choices in ways she's trained herself not to, doesn't change who she is, but makes her want to be more thoughtful about how she wields power. It's not a relationship that makes sense to anyone outside them. Dmitri watches with concern. The rest of her organization adapts because they have to, but she can feel their confusion. Katerina Volkov doesn't do relationships, doesn't do vulnerability, doesn't let anyone close enough to matter, except now she does. And the terrifying part is how right it feels. The confrontation comes from an unexpected direction. It's Emma who shows up at Katerina's building 6 months after everything started. Shows up demanding to see her brother, demanding to know what's going on, demanding answers that Katerina can't easily provide. Daniel meets with her under heavy security. Katerina watches on cameras, ready to intervene if needed. But what she sees isn't what she expects. Emma is angry, yes, scared for her brother, but also perceptive in a way that reminds Katerina of Daniel. After the initial confrontation, after Daniel explains what he can, Emma looks at him carefully. "You want to be here," she says, "don't you?" Daniel doesn't deny it. It's complicated. "Is she good to you?" "Yes." "Does she hurt you?" "No, never." Emma is quiet for a long moment. Then I don't understand it, but I'll accept it. Just promise me you're staying because you want to, not because you're afraid. "I promise," Daniel says, and means it. After Emma leaves, back to her protected life in California with new understanding of her brother's impossible situation, Daniel finds Katerina in her office. "She thinks I'm crazy," he says. "Are you?" "Probably, but I don't care." Katerina studies him. 6 months ago, he was a terrified man she'd taken on impulse. Now he's choosing to be here, choosing her world, her darkness, her complicated reality. It shouldn't work. By all logic, it should have ended in disaster. But instead, it's become the most real thing in her life. "I love you," she says. Not because she's planned to say it, but because it's suddenly the only truth that matters. "I don't know how to do this. Don't know how to be in love and still be who I need to be for my organization. But I love you, and I need you to know that." Daniel crosses the room, stands close enough that she could reach for him if she wanted. "I love you too, and I know this is messy and complicated and probably doomed in a dozen ways. But I'd rather have this, whatever this is, than any safe alternative." When he kisses her, it's gentle, careful, like he's aware of how much power she holds and is choosing to trust her with his vulnerability anyway. And Katerina, who spent her adult life being hard and untouchable and afraid of what softness might cost her, lets herself soften, lets herself be vulnerable in this one moment with this one person. It doesn't fix everything, doesn't erase the danger or the complications or the fundamental impossibility of their situation, but it's real, it's chosen, it's theirs. And for someone who spent 20 years building an empire on calculating every move, having something that defies all logic feels like the greatest victory of all. The epilogue to their story doesn't happen that day, or that month, or even that year. It happens gradually, in small moments accumulated over time. Daniel learning to navigate her world without losing himself. Katerina learning to accept love without seeing it as weakness. Both of them building something that shouldn't exist but does anyway. A relationship forged in impossible circumstances and sustained through choice. There are still threats. Still rivals who see Daniel as a vulnerability to exploit. Still nights when Katerina lies awake, terrified that her love for him will be the thing that finally destroys her. But there are also moments of unexpected peace. Quiet evenings where he reads while she works, conversations that stretch into early morning hours, the slow, steady building of trust between two people who started from impossible positions. And gradually, Katerina begins to understand something she never thought possible. That love doesn't have to make her weak, that allowing herself to care about someone doesn't diminish her power, that the fierce protectiveness she feels for Daniel is just another form of the strength that's kept her alive this long. She's still Katerina Volkov, still the queen of the Russian-American underworld, still dangerous and calculating and willing to do terrible things to protect what's hers. But now she's also a woman in love, a woman who comes home to someone who sees all of her, the violence and the vulnerability, the power and the fear, and chooses her anyway. It's not the life she planned. It's messy and complicated and will probably always carry an element of danger. But it's real in a way nothing else in her life has been. And for someone who's spent decades building walls to protect herself, the fact that Daniel saw through all of them with nothing but kindness and honesty feels like its own kind of miracle. One night, months after everything settled into their new normal, Daniel asks her, "Do you ever regret it? Answering that call? Starting all of this?" Katerina thinks about it, about how much easier her life would be if she'd hung up that night, about how that one moment of weakness, or was it strength, changed everything. "No," she says finally, "I don't regret it. Do you?" Daniel smiles, that quiet smile that still makes her chest tight. Not for a second. And in that moment, surrounded by the trappings of her dangerous life, with the man who shouldn't fit into her world but somehow does, Katerina Volkov feels something she hasn't felt in 20 years. She feels at peace. It won't last. Peace never does in her world, but for now, it's enough. He's enough. They're enough. And sometimes, against all odds and logic and strategic sense, enough is everything.